Imagine pressing your ear to the soil and hearing not silence, but a drumroll of mandibles, millions of them clicking like 1,000 tiny bayonets locking into place. Beneath the grass you mowed this morning, an empire is already burning. A scent trail, sharp as citrus and blood, flares
Where are you
across a twig
from?
and suddenly a legion pours out black. Bodies shimmering, antennae slicing the air like sabers. They're not scavenging. They're invading. In the next 60 seconds, a gate city will fall, larvae will be kidnapped, and the losing queen, once the size of a grape, will be dragged into the light and methodically dismembered. All of it invisible to us unless we shrink ourselves to their scale. Tonight, we do exactly that. We're slipping past the sentries, riding pheromone highways, and witnessing battles so vast they reshape entire niche landscapes. Ant wars aren't squabbles. They're world wars fought in teaspoon-sized trenches, and the question isn't who wins it, is how far the shockwave will travel through the ground beneath your feet. Let's get smaller than the dust on your screen. Smaller than the bead of sweat that's just rolled off your thumb. We're diving straight into the leaf litter where sunlight fractures into green spears and every pebble is a cathedral. Here, the air smells like crushed lemon rind and iron, that sharp tang. It's not plant sap. It's a chemical flare shot out by a scout only 2 millimeters long. In human terms, she has just screamed incoming across a distance equal to 10 football fields, and every soldier in her colony got the memo in under 3 seconds. Watch the scout pivot on her back legs. She has left a pheromone breadcrumb so potent that a single drop could guide a million sisters to war. Now follow that invisible breadcrumb backward, through a maze of bark and root, until it funnels into a tunnel mouth no wider than a sewing needle. Inside, the walls look like polished obsidian, but they're actually compressed soil glued together with larval silk. This is the fortress of a supercolony we'll call Obsidian Spear. Their population? Roughly 500,000. Their queen? A bloated, motionless egg layer the size of a peanut M&M, tended by a retinue who feed her, groom her. And if she ever stops producing, we'll quietly disassemble her. But tonight she's safe, because tonight is not about her. Tonight is about the border. The border is a hairline crack between two sidewalk slabs. On one side, Obsidian Spear. On the other, a rival supercolony known as Coppertide, whose workers shimmer like molten pennies under torchlight. Between them lies a no-antes land the length of a credit card and the width of a pencil eraser. By dawn, that gap will be carpeted in severed heads and twitching abdomens. Phase 1. The probe, a single Coppertide scout emerges. She's older, her exoskeleton scarred like scratched sunglasses. She steps onto neutral ground, antennae flicking at 270 beats per minute. Tasting the air for any hint of foreign royalty, what she finds instead is a trap. An Obsidian Spear assassin lighter, Faster, has been waiting motionless for 6 minutes, pressed flat against a moss blade. The assassin lunges, mandibles clamp around the scout's neck like a guillotine made of fingernail clippers. The scout's legs bicycle frantically, but it's already over. The assassin drags the corpse back across the border, smearing the ground with alarm pheromone, a scent cocktail of panic and rage. In less than 40 seconds, a defensive wave erupts from the Obsidian Spear nest. Phase 2. The phalanx picture a Roman shield wall, except every shield is a living creature, and every shield is also a sword. The first wave forms a living bridge across the crack. Workers lock legs, creating a living pontoon that's 3 ants wide and 20 deep. Behind them, a second wave climbs on top, using their sisters' backs as a highway. They're not charging blindly. They ray following gradients of scent so subtle that a human nose would need gas chromatography to notice. Each ant adjusts her speed, her angle, her mandible gape, all in real time, like pixels in a swarm intelligence video game. Phase 3. The Clash. Coppertide responds with their own tidal surge. The two armies meet at the exact midpoint of the crack. There's no Hollywood slow-mo here, just a sudden, sickening crunch of chitin heads. Pop off like plastic caps. Legs keep kicking even after the thorax is gone. The sound is a faint crackle, like Rice Krispies in milk, but amplified through the hollow stem of the world. The air above the battle darkens with alarm pheromones so thick they almost condense into visible mist. And here's the part no nature documentary ever tells you: the battle. Isn't it random? Each ant is a node in a distributed algorithm. If a Coppertide worker finds an Obsidian Spear worker alone, she'll radio jam that enemy with a burst of propaganda pheromone, literally rewriting the opponent's GPS. The hijacked ant will march herself straight into the heart of Coppertide territory and be torn apart by 20 strangers. Meanwhile, Obsidian Spear's generals' older majors with heads the size of sesame seeds are staging a flanking maneuver. They loop underground, using abandoned beetle burrows as secret tunnels, popping up behind Copper Tide's supply lines. Their goal isn't just to kill. It's to kidnap larvae. Those pale, squirming commas are future workers, but in the short term they're also protein bars. Cut to the nursery. Copper Tide's brood chambers look like a field of rice grains, each larva nestled in its own silk hammock. The raiding party storms in, and the babysitters, the smallest, gentlest workers, transform instantly into kamikaze guards. They grab larvae in their mandibles and sprint for deeper tunnels, while others throw themselves onto the invaders like living sandbags. It's brutal, but it's also strategic. Every second they delay the raiders buys time for the queen to be hustled into a bunker lined with soldier heads facing outward, mandibles open like a spiked Iron Maiden. Back on the surface, the first phase of the war is ending. The crack between the slabs is now a mass grave, bodies pile so high that the surviving ants simply walk across them as if they recrossing a red bridge. But this is only the opening gambit. Both colonies have sustained losses in the thousands numbers that would cripple a human army, yet to ants, this is acceptable. Attrition. Because the real weapon hasn't been deployed yet. The niche in ant ecology. The niche isn't just where you live. It's the sum total of every chemical signature, every temperature gradient, every crumb of food you can claim. Tonight's battle is about redrawing that map. Whichever colony can hold the crack until sunrise will chemically brand the entire sidewalk as its own. Every ant that steps here tomorrow will taste the victor's signature and either bow or die. The stakes aren't just territory. Their identity. But before dawn, something unexpected happens. A third for Steiny, silver, almost ghost-like enters the fray. They're a species of thief ants, 1/10 the size of the combatants, and they smell nothing like either super colony. While Obsidian Spear and Copper Tide are locked in mutual strangulation, the thieves weave between corpses, siphoning off hemolymph-like metallic mosquitoes. To them, this isn't a war. It's a pop-up buffet. Their queen will dine tonight on the distilled essence of two empires. And that's when the first cracks appear, not in the sidewalk, but in the logic of both super colonies. Because the longer the fight drags on, the more pheromone trails blur. Some workers start following the thief ant's scent instead of their own. A Copper Tide major accidentally hauls an Obsidian Spear larva back to her queen. An Obsidian Spear nurse feeds a Copper Tide pupa as if it were her sister. The neat borders of the niche dissolve into chaos. And suddenly every ant has to answer a question no algorithm predicted. Who am I when the scent that defined me is lost? We'll pause here, half buried in carnage, with dawn still an hour away and the sidewalk still undecided. When we return, we'll descend into the bunkers where queens tremble, ride shotgun on a slave raid that spans entire gardens, and watch as a single ant, one unremarkable worker, rewrites the fate of both empires with nothing but a secret weapon hidden in her gut. Beetle grub being farmed for emergency rations. At one point, OS-117 almost loses the escort when they stumble into a pocket of pure Copper Tide scent that feels, if you ray an ant, like walking into a wall of static noise. She has to pause and regurgitate a fresh droplet onto each soldier's antennae, rewriting their identity in real time. Finally, they reach the final choke point, a corkscrew tunnel guarded by Copper Tide's elite soldiers, majors whose heads are so large they have to walk sideways. The assassins can't fight them head-on. There isn't room to swing a mandible, so OS-117 plays her second trick. She approaches the first guard alone. Antennae lowered in a posture universal among ants. I surrender. The guard, suspicious, touches antennae. In that instant, OS-117 releases a micro shot of the cocktail, just enough to scramble the guard's loyalty for 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, the guard steps aside, confused. One by one, the assassins repeat the maneuver, a conga line of temporary amnesiacs, until the royal chamber lies open. Inside, Copper Tide's queen is twice the size of Obsidian Spear's, more Jabba the Hutt than elegant monarch. Her gaster pulses, pumping eggs like a factory conveyor. Around her, a court of tiny workers massages her limbs and feeds her trophic eggs soft, unfertilized caviar that keeps her alive. The assassins fan out. OS-117 climbs the queen's thorax, positions herself between the queen's antennae, and opens her jaws. She releases the entire droplet directly onto the queen's chemosensory pads. The effect is immediate and horrifying. The queen's antennae jerk upright, then curl inward like burnt paper. She emits a distress call, but the call is corrupted, half Copper Tide, half Obsidian Spear, half static. Her court freezes, unable to parse the command. Workers begin attacking each other, unsure which scent is the real queen. Within 90 seconds, the royal chamber becomes a mosh pit of confused mandibles. Eggs are crushed. Larvae are dropped. The queen herself is bitten on the thorax by her own guards. Os-117 and her team slip away in the chaos, leaving behind a colony that is no longer a colony. Just a cloud of individuals. By the time they return to Obsidian Spear's bunker, the sky above the sidewalk is pearl gray with pre-dawn. The surface battlefield is silent. Corpses still carpet the crack, but no living ants remain. Coppertide survivors have scattered or defected. Even the thief ants have fled, sensing the chemical meltdown. The dandelion root, once neutral ground, now reeks of Obsidian Spear's victory. But there's a cost. Os-117E's own scent has changed permanently. The guards at the bunker entrance don't recognize her at first. They almost attack. She has to perform the surrender posture again, antennae flat, until the queen herself intervenes. The queen touches Os-117, tastes the cocktail residue, and does something unprecedented. She grooms the worker not for hygiene, but for memory. She's cataloging every foreign molecule, storing the recipe for future wars. As the first ray of sunlight hits the sidewalk, the niche is redrawn. Obsidian Spear's scent markers now extend 2 meters in every direction, a chemical empire stamped onto concrete. Beneath it, larvae are already being stacked like cordwood, ready to hatch into the next generation of soldiers. The queen lays a final egg larger, paler, slightly iridescent. It pulses once, twice, as if listening to the new world above. And somewhere in the root zone, Os-117 retreats to a quiet alcove. Her social stomach is empty. Her antennae twitch with residual static. She has no name, no medal, no pension. But every ant that passes her leaves a tiny droplet of food, a silent tribute, because every ant now knows a war can be won not by the biggest mandibles, but by the strangest chemistry. Fade out on the sidewalk. A child's sneaker lands inches from the crack, oblivious to the empire that just rose and fell beneath it. The only evidence is a faint lemon copper smell that lingers for one heartbeat before the wind carries it away.